Um, but I think I'll do here just so I can talk about it, and then so I can when this video goes on YouTube, I can. Oops, sorry. I can put a timestamp to it because people might be interested. It's talking about the ARG that never happened. And I can show you some of the evidence that we thought was going to give us a bigger mystery. And it all started right here. So I'll do this. See, I don't know how I'll write down. Okay, hour 27 is when I'll have this. I'll just remember that number for sure. Okay. So, let me fix this real quick. So every single person who played this game heard this radio that's playing right now. And you can even see in my first playthrough of the game, right away I was like, this is a number station, isn't it? And it's repeating letter, number, and it's seemingly random, and it just goes on and on forever, and it never stops. And you can tune to other stations. And in the OST for Half-Life Alyx, this song is in there. And at the end of it, there's numbers that play as kind of tribute to this. But you don't hear it in this version. And then there's also this. Classic, spooky TV music from Half-Life 2, which also exists in other places too. Okay, but anyway. So something that we figured out that you can do with this, well, like, how should I explain this? So this is clearly something that would normally hide a mystery. So I'll show you in the console what you can do to learn more about this number station. It's all right. So you see here in the console, I'll turn on a command that is called SND show start 1. This is going to show us every time a sound is told to play. So it's going to be a whole bunch of spam of like every sound. But you can filter. So you could just say sounds ambient radio. So if I take this and I did not discover any of this. This is me taking other findings from people. So look right here. E6 and I2 and G17 and I15 and B7. And there's 2 videos on my YouTube channel that have 10 minutes of this playing, and we some of us used my videos to try to identify patterns and to just see what we can discover about it. So what I'm gonna do, okay, I'm gonna mute the game audio. All right, so someone extracted all of the sounds from this radio and converted them to MP3, which is like a godly thing to do. Normally, I am not a fan of data mining, but at this point, when we were working on this, we just became so kind of just lost and had no direction. And we were really eager to get something out of this that data mining becomes a little more okay in my book if there's just zero patience. I don't know. Most of the time, I do not like doing this, but in this case, it felt okay. So anyway, I have all of the sounds that make up this radio. And at first we thought it was just going to be a single audio file that gave the entire sequence of numbers, and it just was really big and would just repeat forever. But what was really cool is that it turns out every piece of this radio is a separate file. So we got, oh God, we try that again. Then wow, Windows Media Player sucks. Why is this going so slow?
2, 3, 4.
Here, let me open this in VLC. Actually, let me just open this in Chrome. Be faster.
Zero.
Okay. Actually, I don't have VLC downloaded because I redid my whole computer. So anyway, we have all the numbers 0 through 19. This is the highest amount of numbers.
19.
So instead of just saying like 0 and 9, they actually had separate files for
11
and
12. 14.
So that was an interesting thing to know. It's like, okay, we have 20 total number files, 0 through 19, so that's 20. And then we had every letter of the alphabet.
A, B, F,
Um,
L, O, L.
you know, A through Z. And then we have these things called connectors that sound like this. And then we had terminators that sound like this, that are really long. And then, most interesting of all, which still annoys the community to this day, are these things called synthes. S-Y-N-T-H-Y. And let me boot up Audacity here. I guess I can show Audacity on stream if that's interesting. I'm just going to be reversing the audio, but just to give you something to look at. Okay, so we got, let me, OBS, please. So these are what the synthy files sound like. They go like this. And when I first heard these, I mean, everybody was absolutely convinced that is just a reversed voice. To me, this is inviting us to be like, hey, there's something more to look into here. You should take this audio and reverse it. Like, this is pretty much reaching your hand out to the player and like beckoning, being like, hey, there's a mystery here. Come figure it out. Because why else would you just reverse audio? And then when we reversed it back, it sounds like this. So here's how it normally sounds. Oh God, let me fix this real quick. Normally sounds like this. I know that's really loud. And then we reverse it back by doing this. And it sounds like this. That one is a little harder to understand. You know, let me get one. I think that this one that's louder. Okay, this one's good. Oh, wrong window. So it sounds like this normally. Let's reverse it back. So there's 7 of these files, and they all have different letters that they're clearly saying. And what we got when we combine all the letters together is, and this is going in order from 1 to 7. I wonder if I can show my notes here. I'll change capture over to my notes. It's going to be kind of hard to see. There we go. Nice. Okay, that's useful. Let me take the microphone, put it closer to me. Okay, so when you take all of the synthy files, number 1, like some of them are really obvious. Like this is SWTXUY. And then there's one that's SPTQU. And then there's just XYZ. And there were a few letters that people debated about because we were thinking like, why would they, like, is that a K or is that an A? Or like we could not tell, sorry about the pop, about like what any of these things were, and figured out that there's like around 39 characters total. And we had to think about this from a perspective that if this is a puzzle that's meant to be solved, we are not supposed to know the order that any of these are in. The only reason we know the order is because the sound files are named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we had to take into account that like we don't know what order these appear in. So I put them all together in just one big string, and then tried separating them by the files that they exist into clumps. Tried doing standard cipher stuff like Caesar cipher through every possible shift, like 0 through 24, which is the same as like rote 13 and all of that. We tried doing all of that, didn't turn into anything. And then I was thinking like, okay, maybe it's like a Vigenère cipher, Vigenère, however you pronounce it, which is just a individual shift per character based on a keyword. So most people know it as just a cipher that takes a keyword. So I started collecting words that showed up throughout the game. Like one extremely suspicious thing that we saw. Let's see if I can bring up a picture here. Is okay, I'm just going through my folder of stuff. Weird. Well, I could just go, I'll go and find it in the game. It'll be a little quicker than trying to do all this. If I can keep talking. Anyway, it was a post-it note on the wall that said Laszlo. It said PW colon Laszlo, but the 0 or the O at the end was a 0. And it's found in Russell's lab, which when you dig into the data of the game, that Russell's previous name in development was Laszlo. Like he was supposed to be him early on. And then he eventually was changed into Joseph, like Josef. And then he finally became Russell. Keep popping in it, sorry. And he eventually became Russell in the oldest version. So I don't know if it meant anything, but we have something that says password Laszlo. And then there's a poster in the game that says username North Star Front Desk, and it was written in the corner of a poster that was in the hotel. So anyway, it tried Laszlo as the cipher key. Then I tried some other ciphers, like there's @bash, there's rail fence, all kinds of things that you can just sort of try every combination with, and it never became anything. And I also had the idea that, well, okay, since the original audio files are backwards, and then we have to reverse them to hear them, maybe the intended order is supposed to be that sequence, but backwards. So then I redid everything with the backwards version, and it didn't do anything. So this is where the bulk of everything kind of stopped immediately. It's like, clearly they want us to work with these letters, right? But nobody was ever able to get anything with it. And of course, people like whipped out the old, what is it called? Not acronym, or anagram. You know that the discussion is nearing its death when people start grasping at anagrams, especially when you have this many letters. You could get like any word you want out of this because there's so many letters. So people started coming up with weird things, and then we're just like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. So then, when people extracted all the files and they looked at the radio and like, okay, let's analyze the sequence that all of these numbers go in. And the thing that really stood out, let me open this file and show you guys. This is the script file that defines everything that the radios do. Here, let me fix this. All right. So this file, ambient radio, male number station connector. So this was exciting because it shows that Valve is calling this a number station. It's not just radio ambience, it's a number station, which number stations are a whole other conversation, but they're always in connection with a secret of some kind. Like when you bring number station up, immediately it's about encryption, it's about hidden messages. So they've introduced that terminology into the conversation. So this told us that connector and is that anytime the voice says and, or it has the connector audio, which is just like a little radio blip sound, this meant that there's no meaning behind connector. Connector plays the same role as and it's just meant to be a regular, just, add some variety to it. Like if I turn the audio back in, you can kind of listen to what I mean. See that it was a little buzz instead of the word and. So they play the same role. And then we go down in a number station alpha. So this is showing every audio file, every letter. So this shows us that every single letter of the alphabet can potentially be played on the radio. And then we had station numeric. This shows that every number can potentially appear in the number station. And then we go down here, we got station A, B, D. So this is where things started to get really weird. Is that they have functions or whatever you'd call it in here for specific letters and numbers to be called, but not all of them. So let me scroll down a little bit. So we have like a call to say station 4, station 7, station 14. And then this whole section here says that they reserved a special function, if that's even the right term, to make sure that A14 is spoken in a sequence. And there's a special thing to manually pronounce D7. So we have A14, D7 and V4. So like if I bring up the console again, which I still have the number station looping in the background here that you guys can't see, you can start to see a pattern forming. V console. Let's see, where can you even see it? I guess you can kind of see where my mouse is up here. So we have Terminator, Synthy, and that's where a section ends. So you have P3, E19, F7, K13, K0, U1. So that's a random sequence, but then you get sequences further on. Of course, my luck. Oh, here we go. I'll wait till this one gets visible on the screen. And this isn't the best way to be showing this off, but right here. Okay, I'm going to stop the console from moving so I can talk about this. That we see that D7 is called, and V4. D7, V4, A14 were artificially made to appear way more often than every other number sequence. And here's A14 again. So of every number and letter combination, those three are forcibly being made to show up. So it has to mean there's significance, right? Like, why would they do that? And then let me go back to the text file. Yeah, so A14, speak A14, and D7, and V4, and no other pairs are like this. And then this just tells us random, random. Everything else is random. And even more interesting is that they call this thing secret. Male number station secret random. Like, why are they even calling this? Oops, sorry, there you go. Why are they even calling this secret if there isn't something to be figured out here? Like, why would you evoke such a loaded word? So then this is showing that there's no meaning behind all the Terminators. It's just a random thing. And the synthes, the voices that can be reversed, they had 1 through 7, and it just shows that they can appear in any order. There's no forced order. So this means that anytime you hear the backwards voice, the order that it appears is just random. So we're not meant to know an order behind the synthes. So they should be treated as separate parts. And getting near the end of the script file there, so we have sequence 1 that tells us the structure that sequence 1 is supposed to have. So it's random, 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 and then play a specific file, random, random, and then end. And then another order is random, play a specific pair, random, random, specific pair, random, specific pair. So despite it saying random, it's actually not random. And the ones that don't say random are random. Doesn't that make sense? But you just trust me on that one. And then it shows me here that it says Station Tenements 1. So the introduction to the game uses sequence 8, which is this one. And then, Station Intro 1 is the introduction to the game, which is this one. And then Tenements 1 is actually the hotel where the other radio sequence appears. And that uses sequence 1 up here, and then, sequence 8. Got it. Which is this structure. Oh, and you can't even see that when I'm doing, sorry, this is very unprofessional. Oh, when I resize the window, should have been watching OBS. All it was, you could just take my word for it, is just, there's 2 sequences defined. Both sequences give a structure to all the numbers, and they force certain pairs to play while mixing in random numbers for everything else. So if I go back to my notes, I didn't think I would be doing this on stream, otherwise I would have organized this to be a little more easy to understand. So you can see kind of where my thought process was going. Like, here's the pairs that are forced to play. E7, and then down here we have, in this structure, sequence 8 forces D7, A14, V4, and then this is just me recording different sequences that I get. So you can see when D7 appears in a sequence, the chances of A14 and V4 appearing are very high. So when D7 appears, A14, nothing in there, but D7, A14, D7, A14, D7, A14, and V4. So then I started just recording other stuff, and then yeah. So it's a very long-winded thing just to say that we have every reason to believe that there was a secret in here, down from the explicit use of the word secret to number station, and then of course we have Valve News Network guy Tyler made a video saying there's a potential ARG in the game, and he didn't give us his sources. He just said he was told there is something to find in the game. And then a little bit later, lots of people email Gabe Newell and say, hey, is there a secret? Is there an ARG in the game? And then Gabe responded and said, there is no ARG. And then that kind of shut everything down. That he just said there's nothing. But we still kind of believe there's at least an Easter egg or something to find using these numbers or these letters. This sequence. But we just don't know where to go from here. And I'll show you when I go back in game, but there's some weird things regarding the radios themselves that gave us more evidence to think that there's something in here. And also, there is always the possibility that they might have started to make something and then they just scrapped it and then just left the pieces in the game, which is a really evil thing to do. But knowing, big developers having, leaving pieces of a potential, secret in a game is just, it's nothing, because they have, bigger priorities, more important things. And there's even a website. This is another thing. In the newspapers in the game, this URL is on a poster in the game, theterminal.online, and it's a real website, except it's just a domain that was reserved, and there's no actual website. And people noted that the domain is not owned by the same owner as all the other Valve-related websites. It's a totally different company. It's like, why would you put a real URL in a game when you could easily make a fake one? Why would you put a real one in if you did not want people to go to it? And then to go back to the earlier, there's a texture in the game that says username, North Star Front Desk, password, Laszlo. So it just seems like we have every reason to believe that there's supposed to be a secret, or at some point might be a secret. And then Gabe came out and said no. And for those of you who probably were around when CSGO had a secret, and it was this is just more evidence that we had every reason to believe there's a secret here. CSGO had a thing called Danger Zone, which is like kind of their battle royale, and there's a hotel room or motel room that has a bunch of TVs, and when you sneak into the room, it has a number station, and it's speaking out loud a bunch of words. And it's this specific, it's not the phonetic alphabet, but it's this other really complicated version of the phonetic alphabet that is actually a whole conversation on its own. It's a really interesting thing. It's like a phonetic alphabet, but to the extreme, where every letter has multiple ways. It's hard to explain. But anyway, it had a number station, a voice reading words just like in Half-Life Alyx, and it all translated to "This was a triumph." And of course, people are like, Portal 3, oh my god, this is it. This is them announcing Portal 3. And then someone emailed Gabe, and then Gabe immediately shut it down, just like this, saying there is no ARG. So Valve has a long history of having number stations that have actual secrets. Of all the times a number station has been in a Valve game, every time it has led to a real secret or a real ARG, except right now they claim there's nothing. So that just makes me super skeptical that the one time in their newest game that they had a long time to work on, that this means nothing. I don't know. Ugh. So that was very long talk. Just catching up on what you all are saying. Oh yeah, and of course there's just the Portal 2 ARG, which is a whole big, complicated thing on its own. And if you're interested in the Portal 2 ARG, there's a whole wiki dedicated to it. The Portal 2 ARG is what got me into ARGs and all of this. Like, I attribute a lot to that. I remember being there as it happened and was just so blown away, saying like, this type of puzzle is extremely appealing to me. Just the mystique behind it, and the obscurity, and how I felt scared the whole time. Like, anytime new information came out about the Portal 2 ARG, I was just like getting goosebumps. And this is before I knew anything about radio, anything about like SSTV or Morse code or any of that. So this was all like, holy crap, this is amazing. I'm just going to link this in chat because I'm sure there's probably people interested in this. I'm not going to talk about the whole Portal 2 ARG because that is a very long subject. But I want to link it. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So I'm posting a link to it in chat. If you want to know what that was all about, go to that wiki. And for people watching this on YouTube later, it's just Google search Portal 2 ARG wiki. It's like the first result. And then there's also an article by the creators of the ARG, kind of like a retrospect of them talking about how they felt it all went, which is really interesting too, hearing their perspective on the matter. Let me get a link to that real quick. Okay, well, here's one of the articles. It's a Gama Sutra article, but there's an even better one. Is this it? No, this isn't it. Oh, here we go. Okay, here's another link. Yeah, so then for people watching this later, if you just search Portal 2 ARG Gama Sutra, Gamasutra, there's one article that's called Alternate Reality Game Puzzle Design. And then there's the Portal 2 ARG whole story. And those articles are from people who worked on it. So it's very cool to hear their perspective. But that ARG featured lots of radios emitting mysterious numbers that actually led to things. So the fact that Half-Life Alyx has radios that emit have a very intricately designed system of creating number stations with forced characters showing up that all have structure and all of that, and voices that speak letters backwards. There just has to be something here. But it's mostly been abandoned, unfortunately, until we get more information. But we're supposed to get the Half-Life Alyx or the Source 2 Hammer Editor, which is a level design tool. We're supposed to get that next month. So that will maybe give us more insight into what all's going on here. All right. So let me close down my notes. Just going to read back on what people were saying in chat. Yeah, of course people were like, oh, maybe Gabe saying no means that there actually is something. It's like, no. Gabe is usually pretty cut and dry with everything that he says. Like, it's rare that there's like more to read into in anything that he says. He's always just like, yes, no. Mm. And number stations themselves, like real world number stations, are a really interesting subject. There's lots of documentation on them if you're interested in that. And you can listen to them in real time using SDR, which is software defined radio. It's a web browser that lets you access radio stations in other countries. And Russia, believe it or not, has like more number stations than like any other country. And Cuba and China have a lot. And then there's huge archives of just number stations, so you can listen to them and hear what they're all about. Okay, I'm just gonna go back into the game. So now that I have this conversation, I'm gonna go back to the game. But if you have any questions or anything about any of this, I'm happy to talk about it. So now what I'm gonna show everybody is some of the theories related to how we are meant to progress this suspected Easter egg or whatever it is. It never turned into anything, but were interesting nonetheless. Can we turn the game audio back on? Whew. How do you listen to these number stations? There's a website. I'll link this in chat too. There's a lot of websites. Like someone in chat said there's subreddits dedicated to number stations, but there's also my favorite one called Riom, which is the Russian word for like propagation, I think, which is a radio thing. I'll link this in chat. Priym. This one actually has schedules for real world number stations, and you can click the link and you can set up your computer to be ready to listen to them in real time, which is kind of exciting. And what people always ask is they're like, well, what do they mean? And that's the thing. We know what they're for. We don't know who they're for specifically. or what the messages are. Despite there being thousands of new number station transmissions every day, we have never been able to translate any of them because they're designed to be secure and they do a good job at it. They're using a cryptographic method known as a one-time pad or a Vernum cipher, which uses random number generation to secure a message. And there's lots of YouTube videos on that too. So if you YouTube search one-time pad, like, you know, ONE, TIME, PAD, you'll find explanations for it. And they all say, like, this is like the most secure yet simple way to encode something. And that explains why we have not been able to just listen to a number station and be like, oh yeah, this is the message. So anyway, please do a number station stream. I did do one a long time ago. I'd like to do one again. Because, you know, we got a whole month of me not having a job. And I have like unemployment payments going on right now. So I, in theory, have a lot of time to stream. So I might do yet another radio stream. Just so, because they're fun. I'm actually doing pretty well, despite the world situation, because months ago, before quarantine stuff, I got a big pay raise at my job. I saved up a lot of money and I didn't buy anything for a long time, so I can survive the next few months without a job pretty well. But I actually qualify for unemployment, so I'm getting some money to help sustain myself, and I live alone, so I have very low risk of getting infected. I live in a house with like 11 other people, but we're all super introverted people that sit in our rooms all day, so I never see them. And I live very close to a grocery store, so I don't have to go far at all to get food. So I'm pretty good. And I am extremely grateful that I am in this position to be healthy and happy compared to what's going on in the world. Um, but uh, and I do have a mouse that is living under the floorboards of my room, and that's been an ongoing thing. Is I was just sitting at my computer and I heard a titter tatter across the floor, and I was like, "What, did I drop something on the floor?" And then I look over there, and it's just a mouse sitting in my room. And because I have foam pads on the ground for VR, so anything that walks on these foam pads is like the sound is amplified a lot. And then it led me to a hole in the wall, which I went inside it, and I went to this really trippy, hypnotic world. There was like this cat that teleported around, and there was like a caterpillar that was like smoking hookah at a tea party and stuff. But so I taped up the hole and then sprayed some liquid bleach over the hole, which was supposed to deter them from coming out. But then the next day, I found the mouse again, and then I scared it, and it ran into another hole, an even bigger one. So then I went and covered that up, and then I purchased some live traps on the internet that I'll hopefully get in a few days. I'm hoping to catch this mouse and then like leave it miles away from my home. I'm sure there's more than one. I don't know. I'm grateful that it's just a mouse that I'm dealing with and not like a centipede. Centipedes are the worst. Much rather deal with a mouse than a centipede. Mice are at least afraid of you and they have predictable behavior, but centipedes are like chaotic evil. Like, they have no rhyme or reason behind how they behave. They do not care about people. You can't really scare them away. They'll just like run all over you when you're not expecting it, and they're really fast. You can't catch them. You can't bait them like mice. They're horrible. So I had to deal with house centipedes at a different place where I lived many years ago. That was hell, but mouse problem isn't isn't too bad. I can deal with it. But anyway, my streams are all about tangents, by the way, if you couldn't tell. I keep getting going on subjects. As long as I don't see two mice in the same place at the same time, I think I'm good. I feel like this is just one mouse. Because, you know, one is a coincidence, two is an infestation, or whatever they say, regarding like cockroaches and things. And Sir Crow is linking number stations in chat, which is awesome. Do as much linking to number stations as you want. Okay, now for real this time, I'm going to go back into Alyx, and I'm going to show you all one theory that people had. Let me get the command set up. I'm going to turn the ambience back on. Okay. So this radio is a lot more complicated than it looks. You know, you're just twisting, and it goes to different stations. And when you look really closely at the radio, you know, I have my texture resolution very low, so you can't really see too clearly, but this is realistic in how it... Come on, hand. Let me point. Okay. Stop it! Oh my god. Okay, I'm not going to be able to point very well, but on the left side it says SW, which is shortwave, and then it says FM at the bottom. It has, in the very top is LW, MW, this is low wave, medium wave, and it has actual, accurate frequencies. And we have a way of, you know, adjusting. But watch what happens when I turn on a developer command. This command is going to show us anytime game logic changes a state, it'll highlight it. It's called ent messages draw. Whoa. That's not what I want. All right. So watch when I turn this knob. Boom. There is a ton of stuff happening. So when it's just sitting here, like anytime all that shows up, it means something changed. The rotating of this causes all of that to trigger. It's setting values, it's changing values, and it's testing sequences of logic, all these different relays. Even the tiniest little rotation in value. And then it puts that out. And then watch. Here. Certain sequences enable some of these relays and they disable other ones. So when I saw this, because I've mapped in Half-Life 2 before and done some like pretty complicated scripting, and I have a feeling that all of this logic is telling the game that when I rotate my wrist, it's keeping track of all of the degrees of rotation and is outputting that to the audio, telling the audio to change its volume up and down depending on how far I rotate. And that when it reaches a certain degree of rotation, to turn off all the rest and to turn on one. So I think this is just the logic that defines just the functionality of what you're seeing right here. But this didn't stop people from theorizing that maybe we're supposed to enable a certain sequence, like a combination lock, to be like, okay, go to here, and then they here, and then they here, and then they here, and then to like that it would do something. Like I mean, you can do this. But people worked on this theory for a while, thinking that we had to get just the right combo. And there is a sticky note in the game that has a combination that we have not used anywhere. It said like 10 dash like 30 dash like 05. And we have no use for it. It was very strange. I'm gonna read what you're all saying. Nice. Good to see people sharing number station stuff in chat. Does pulling the antenna cause any logic changes? From what I could tell, it just plays an audio file, I think. It's the industry code. Let's see. So every physics object that you interact with triggers the use event. Like when I pick this bottle up, it says use. So that's normal. Like everything you interact with does use, which this does also. But it also changes float value. So it's also sending a number value to another logic entity for some unknown reason. And I don't think it actually has like an audible effect. Like it doesn't sound like it's changing anything. And here's another thing. End text. This will take whatever you look at and it will dump a whole bunch of data about that object. And okay, let me turn messages off. And then I'll turn this on. All right. It'll be kind of hard to read this. I'll try not to shake my head much. Oh wait, no, this isn't the right object. Shoot. Can I erase? Oh no, it's not gonna let me get rid of it. Here, I'll just manually type in the command to erase the mistake. I think it's end messages delete. Or no, end text clear. There we go. Let me try that again. Because this gets visually very busy very quick. Okay, let me make sure I'm looking at the radio. That's the wrong one. Pigeon, no. Physics? Nope. No. Come on. VR problems, hashtag. No. Wait. No. Pigeon, please. Why are you showing up here? It was so easy before. Why can't I do it now? Combine screen. I think I'm too close. Citizen Pigeon is the name. You heard it here first, folks. This pigeon is a confirmed citizen of City 17. Fully registered. Oh my god. Okay, well, this one isn't as important as one I'll show later, but... Oh, it's too much stuff. Let me delete. Alright. Well, what... Didn't do it. Maybe someday they'll do something with this, like a Portal 1 ending changed. That's all. That's really the most hope we have, is just that maybe we'll do something with this in the future. Also, thanks for the follow, Paper Compass and Grant Chill. That they have a whole system in place to make a number station that gives real information, and they have a lot of control over it. So when we, at the very least, when we get Source 2 Hammer Editor, we can use this script and like make our own number station. Like I could make a whole puzzle that actually uses all of this information how we wanted it to happen. But of course, it's not going to be as interesting if it's just a random person doing it compared to Valve, but it's possible. I'm guessing this is for some hidden content, Half-Life Alyx. Is this like a puzzle? Well, yeah, well, you'll have to see earlier in the stream. It's just a whole bunch of really suspicious stuff that people looked into for like a week in depth. We had multiple discords full of like 100 people all working on this. And then Gabe responded to an email and said, no, there is no ARG. So that caused like 95% of people to stop working on it, because what Gabe says is like the ultimate truth, is gospel. And but there still could be just some Easter egg. Oh yeah, the Portal 2 ARG, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, I'm definitely aware of that. Okay, so let me go to a different map. Let's go to Exhibit B regarding mysterious stuff. It's A3. All right. If anyone's interested too, because right now I'm looking at a giant holographic image of City 17, which is one of the coolest parts of this game, which you can't see, but people discovered that there's a specific city in Bulgaria that is almost a one-to-one depiction of, and it's a city called Sofia, Bulgaria. I'm not sure how you spell it in English, but it's like, yeah, Sofia. And people have a map comparing the two, and the street layout is like identical. And like the train station lines, everything is like exactly, except, you know, the combine part of it all. All right. I have the difficulty as low as it can go, just so that I don't have to actually try, or I don't accidentally get killed while I'm trying to teleport all over the place. All right, there's going to be a really loud sound here in a second. And also, if you're new here, I just want to iterate again, this is a spoiler stream. We'll just be, you know, suddenly talking about the ending of the game or all kinds of stuff. So if you don't want to see parts of the game, don't watch this. We're going to be jumping all over the place. All right. Loud noise warning. My game is lagging a lot for some reason.
Got one now. That was weird.
And the power's out. Looks like we're taking the stairs.
But there's a line of dialogue here that was really interesting. Not interesting, it's just funny. I don't know what makes her say it, but she's like, and the power's out. And then she says, and the stairs out. Because it's all been flooded and destroyed. Oh, actually, I can be really cheap, and I'll turn on no target and God mode. Ah!
And the stairs are out.
Oh, there we go.
Let's try and get that power back on.
Huh. Hello. How are we doing today? What? I'm sorry, but I don't want to hear all these monster noises while I'm doing other stuff, so... It has to happen. Same for you. Alright. Sad ending. So this is the other suspicious item, which is a radio. Playing the same stuff. And the script that I talked about earlier has two special sequences, one for this map, one for the other map. And this also has the repeating characters, like, repeating pairs, like,
Anything look like a breaker box in there?
Shut up!
Nah, still looking.
Like, D7, A14, and V4 are the three pairs that are forcibly put into the sequences of random numbers in both maps. And if anything touches this radio, it stops transmitting. And I want to show you all something interesting about this. This is something that, well, I think I discovered first, but it's not exactly a big finding or anything. It's because I know, having mapped for Half-Life 2 before, that if you're going to have an object have logical meaning in a map, you give it a name so that it can be recognized and filtered by a trigger. So let me go upstairs. Okay, so right here, here's a radio. So this is identical to the radio that is sitting on the table emitting number station numbers. So when I look at this radio, first of all, look at that face. It's like eye, and then mouth. And I look at the data behind this. It's, there's nothing special here. It's, called Radio Set 1. It has no name. By default, it's given the name Prop Physics, because that's the type of entity it is. This radio's entire purpose is just to be a radio. Like, not function as one, it's just to be a thing that you can pick up and move, and that's it. So let me turn that off. And then let me go back downstairs. Then go to this radio. Let's look at the data for this one. No, that is not it. Here we go. It has a name. This radio is special. It's called desk radio. So when something's given a name, it usually means that it has significance. And when I touch this, all that it does is the touching of this causes a sound, an ambient sound entity that's just sitting like right here. It just causes it to turn off, and that's it. But this still, so what we thought for a while is maybe, you're like, watch. I'll turn this on. We watch what happens. That turn on? There it is, okay. When I touch this, stop sound. So me, by touching this, it output a command to the audio telling it to stop. No, you don't need to have a uniquely named object to do that. Like you could have this cup make the sound turn off, and its cup doesn't have a special name, but this does. So what we thought is maybe it's like Portal 1 in the beginning of the Portal 2 ARG. Maybe I have to bring this radio somewhere to get a unique radio transmission, which would be in line with everything that, you know, we were taught previously about Valve's depictions of radios and number stations, but it ended up not doing anything. Now, I'm not going to turn this command on because it has a history of crashing my game, but there's a command that shows you every trigger in the whole map, and there's a bunch of triggers inside your head. And when I turn it on, it's like a strobe light of flickering in my eyes, which is extremely unpleasant. So we were doing this. We were holding on to the radio and just going to every possible place and trying to make something happen. Like, is it over here? You know, maybe you have to like bring it up here. I don't know, because that radio was sitting up here. What if I just put it right there? But, you know, as we all know, it didn't do anything. So if there's a Valve employee watching right now, feel free to take my ideas. Because when they're not my ideas, but like our ideas as a community. So, all I gotta do, you know, is update Half-Life Alyx, put add a new achievement to the game that has something to do with radios that is very cryptic, and then we will be sure to run around and test everything like we did in Portal 1. And something I want to point out too is that solving obscure Easter egg mysteries in VR is so amazing in VR, because like this feels real when I'm here, and it adds a whole extra level of creepiness and uncanniness when you're in this pretty convincing world trying to figure out a mystery. Like something I did, because this piano has always been suspect. People are saying like there's got to be some combination of letters that or keys that you can press that that triggers something, because like, you know, this whole sequence. Okay, and before I press it, this is the only logic this piano has in the whole game, is this conversation between Alyx and Russell. And you can watch it happen. Oh great, I have dev mode on, so I can't push buttons. Let me turn this off. Alright, this whole thing.
Hey Russ, name a song.
Flight of the Bumblebee.
Coming right up.
Alright, so that trigger was enabled. So the game is waiting for me to push a button or push a key to make Russell say his next line of dialogue. So I'll push another key. Goes to here, speak
That's
concept,
it.
disable. So it's no longer listening, no longer waiting for me to push a piano key. So every time I push one, all it does is the piano tells an audio file to play, and that's it. So when people are like, okay, what if you play a specific song? Let's play a, like people were playing Portal songs and all of that. There's no logic in the game keeping track of what sequence you're trying to put in here. They tried every key. And in theory, if you had hit even one correct key, if there was a hidden song, you would have seen another branch go out somewhere else telling us, oh, they hit the correct key. Okay, are they going to hit the second one correct too? But none of these keys did any of that. It's all the same thing. Which was disappointing. That would have been really cool to play a special song and then something would trigger. Someone even pieced together. I'll read your chat messages in a second, but I want to get this idea out of my head. Someone even pieced together all of the little connector files in the radio. That radio. When you pitch them up, they're playing a specific tone. Some of them have like 3 tones, some have 2, and they're clear tonal notes. Like they're notes that a piano can play. They're not like semitones or whatever, or microtones, or I can't remember the term. Put them all together. So we had this song memorized for a while. I sat here and learned it because I was like, this song might end up being part of a big mystery. Oh my God, go away. And the song went like this. Let's see if I can remember it. It's not a very interesting song. Okay, it was like... like, it was something like that. And I tried playing it on every octave. I was doing like... Or no. Like, let's do it on here. Doing it all over. I tried everything. And I was never able to, do it. And then once we figured out this whole deal, we were like, well, the piano isn't even trying to keep track of information. So, myth busted, I guess. Okay, anyway. There is a video of someone doing Flight of the Bumblebee. You should check it out. Also notice that there's a special name for the number stations for a male voice. Makes you think that they're supposed to be a female. Not necessarily. I mean, maybe early on they had a female one. I don't know for sure, though. Can you bring the radio to another map? Weird thing about that, if I bring the radio and I'm holding the radio and I walk through a map transition, the game will crash. It just like gives an error and crashes to the desktop. But if I take the radio and throw it into the level transition and then walk into the level transition, it will load and the radio will be there. But I'm pretty sure the radio does not retain its name. It loses this desk radio name that you see here. The gnome is a good example that the game is capable of tracking the progress of one physics object to another map. And the gnome is just called gnome. It has a custom name. And this radio has like all the same qualities of the gnome. So it seemed like it had the potential to be something. And it might still be. There is another, this will, I think, be more effort than it's worth to show you all, but there is a console command that will bring up every entity in the whole map and tells you the names of everything. And I scoured through this map to see if there's any triggers that are called like trigger desk radio or anything waiting for this radio. And I couldn't find anything. And what made it really difficult is that the term radio is used to talk about scripted conversations between Alyx and Russell. So I found a bunch of triggers that were called like radio turn on, radio like radio transition to, and I was like, oh my god, there's logic here for the radio. But then I read further into it, and it's just logic to turn Russell conversations on and off, and that's it. And then another thing that I had, another theory, is that this map, you fight what's called the Reviver, which is the electricity dog thing. The thing that climbs into dead bodies and brings them back to life. Because when you kill those, they leave behind this like electrical heart. And I thought, okay, I'll bring the radio to the basement and I'll like touch this heart to the radio and maybe it will like bring it alive and do something weird with it, but it didn't. That's another thing that would have been cool. Oh yeah, Pakatomi talking about the Yeti Steam VR home. You would know firsthand that solving mysteries in VR are really fun, like way more fun than doing it on a desktop. Like the game Accounting has a lot of actual secrets in it. Reading the rest of your comments. Yeah, music is the language of the soul. Music is the universal language, I think is the term. Has anyone brought the radio to the end of the game? I think someone did, because as you can see, when I have developer mode on, it's very easy to move stuff anywhere you want. Like I could just be like, all right, let's put the radio up here. You know, maybe this is what they want. I can even take it through walls. I can hang out in the void with the radio. Funny thing is that the chandelier is actually a physics object. What was a really cool moment for me though, if I can recreate it. So right now I'm sitting down in real life. So if I move over here, I spent like 2 hours sitting right here at this piano, sitting in real life. People were giving me all kinds of different combinations of notes to try playing. So I was just sitting here for a long time. This is hard to get situated with the developer mode. Just, you know, no, I'm too short, but just doing stuff like... Game, you're not making this easy. Alright. Anyway, just doing stuff like... And then trying to spell out words like, what was one? I can't remember. But just playing different notes, like the... Or... whatever that sequence was. But what the moral of the story is that me sitting here thinking that we might trigger some kind of secret was like incredibly immersive. And when I listened to the ambience of this space, I kept looking behind me because it was so eerie. Like, what if I just opened a door somewhere? What if it's gonna cause someone to like walk up behind me? It was really scary. I was like, you know, okay, maybe here's the new theory. And then like, is there... And I was always looking, it was just so immersive. And I would not have felt this kind of feeling if this was not in VR. And the ambient sounds and all like this added to it. Like I was, oh, oh yeah. And one time I startled myself so badly because I had my controllers just hanging loose like this, and I went to go do something on my computer, and then the piano just started playing by itself, and I was like, oh my god, what's happening? And I was looking around, and I was like scared shitless, thinking that I triggered something in the game, but it was just because my controllers were hanging like this. That was such a terrifying moment. I had my headphones on too. But yeah, that's all it ended up being, was just me forgetting that I'm still in the game, even though I don't have the headset on. And I was thinking too, like maybe there's hidden notes written on the back of a painting or something. I really wanted these paintings to be a part of something, even if it was just like a hidden like resin or something like that. Speaking of Valve and ARGs leading to nowhere, remember the Christmas, yes, the Steam Christmas sale ARG of 2016? I was there, and that's when the Game Detectives Discord started. It started as a Steam winter sale ARG Discord, and it turned into a full-fledged ARG Discord after that. I have the red herring Steam badge, which you can only get the red herring badge from having participated in that ARG. So I feel proud. That's the one that's on the front of my Steam account. Oh yeah, and Duck Season has all kinds of stuff in it, secrets and things. But you know, anyone that does anything with ARGs knows that you can't always be waiting for the end. And it sounds really sappy and everything, but it's so much about the journey more than it is the destination, because ARGs and any kind of Easter egg mystery relies so heavily on your imagination filling in the gaps and making it into a bigger thing than it really is. And you just got to kind of enjoy the moment when we're all theorizing, investigating, trying to like come up with anything that we can in order to try to make sense of it. Like, I don't feel like it was a waste of time for all of us to be sitting around listening to these radios just for Gabe to come out and be like, no, it's nothing. I still feel like that was a great use of time. Sure, we didn't get an ending, we didn't get a reward or anything, but it was a great time. So, if there is an ending or a completion of an ARG, that's just like, you know, an added bonus. So you got to set yourself up for this, or you got to expect that there's probably not going to be something anytime you start something like this. Okay, I'm trying to think what else going on in here. Wait. 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 What? Did I just discover an error? How come C and C sharp are the same note? Look, C sharp, C. Valve, what are you doing? Anyway. Too hard to accurately play. Wait. I used to know the whole song. Final Fantasy, yeah. No, that was the Sims theme I did earlier. Try other octaves. Yeah, it's corrected for other octaves. C sharp is the secret code. Yeah. So the fact that C sharp doesn't work, it means that we need to open up Microsoft Visual Studio in the C sharp language. You got to import all of the C sharp files, and which we get those in the SDK. So we just need to get the SDK. We've got to open up all of the original code in C sharp. Easy. But those kinds of theories are like legitimate ones that come up. And you just kind of got to be like, nah.